this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
What's going on, horror fanatics? Welcome to I Shot Him 6 Times YouTube horror movie channel. As you know, I'm your host and creator of the channel, Marcus, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about Costas Mandylor's character in the Saw franchise, Detective Mark Hoffman, and what his role could be in the upcoming Saw 11 film. If you haven't done so already, please shoot this video a like. It definitely helps out with the YouTube algorithm a ton, as well as if you happen to be a new viewer to this channel, please shoot that subscribe button as well as that notification icon so you get all the latest content updates to the channel. Okay everyone, so in the Saw X post-credit scene, we get the return of Costas Mandylor reprising his role as Detective Mark Hoffman, as we see him in a bathroom trap, setting up Henry Kessler's game with John Kramer. Outside of this moment though, we do not see Detective Mark Hoffman in the film at all. We only hear his voice on the other end of the phone in the flashback scene of the final act, where we get confirmation that Hoffman, for the most part, helped John Kramer track down these people who scammed John out of his money for his cancer treatment. Now, this little bit of a role, this cameo in Saw X that we got for Detective Mark Hoffman has led many fans wondering for Saw 11, what will the character's role be? Will he have the same amount of screen time? Will he have an increased role? I've seen theories out there that many believe that Saw 11 could focus more on John and Mark's relationship like they focused on John and Amanda's relationship in Saw X. And I'm not against that. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. I personally think that Detective Mark Hoffman will have a bigger role in Saw 11, but I don't think it will be from a standpoint of we will see him and John's relationship basically at the forefront of the film. And the only reason why I say that is because, and I've spoke about this before, producer Oren Coles came out about a month ago and gave a little teaser to the whereabouts of John Kramer and Amanda Young for Saw 11, and he states that John Kramer and Amanda Young are still overseas. Now, why that matters when it comes to Detective Mark Hoffman is because when you look at that post-credit scene in Saw X, we know for a fact that the bathroom trap game is in the US. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because if John and Amanda are still overseas, because it is basically all but confirmed at this point that Saw 11 is going to be a continuation of Saw X's story, which will basically highlight the fact that Cecilia Peterson is still alive. So you can assume that this is going to be chapter 2 in the John Kramer versus Cecilia Peterson rivalry. So if Mark Hoffman is still in the States, there really, in my opinion, isn't much room for him overseas, and it really wouldn't make a lot of sense for John Kramer to go back to the States, handle Henry Kessler's game, only to go back overseas and finish the game with Cecilia. I just think, especially given his health, that is just entirely too much for him to be doing. So what I'm basically saying here, guys, is this: if it holds true what Oren Coles is saying, that the John Kramer character and the Amanda Young character are still overseas, what I'm basically saying is that for Saw 11, Detective Mark Hoffman could be featured more, but it will serve more as a side story to the main story that we are getting in the film. Now, this is nothing that is new in the Saw franchise, as the Saw franchise has had multiple sequels that have focused on multiple storylines at once, only to tie it all together in the end. So I think that this could be the approach that they are taking for Saw 11, and I have a couple reasons why I believe this could be true. The first option that I'll speak about is the option to feature games and traps from the previous films that occurred off screen. Detective Hoffman could be overseeing these games for John while he is overseas with Amanda. The idea of games occurring off screen was hinted in Saw the Final Chapter, where we get introduced to a group of jigsaw survivors. Some consist of some familiar faces whose games and traps we've seen play out in previous films, Others, such as this woman here in the overlay in the lawnmower trap game, who we've never seen before, but was a test subject of John Kramer off screen. John Kramer, in his own words, had a lot of work still left to be done, so it wouldn't be entirely shocking to see some of these off-screen games and traps make it on screen in Saw 11, with Mark Hoffman overseeing the games played in the US, while John and Amanda finished their game with Cecilia Peterson overseas. However, the second option I'm going to speak about actually might serve better for the character of Detective Mark Hoffman, as I believe the second option and direction they could go in for this character in terms of telling a side story for him would be actually featuring the traps in the games that he himself put together without John Kramer's approval. I'm going to play a clip from both Saw 3 and Saw 7 to clarify why I believe this could actually be featured heavily even more in Saw 11.
The hell could Jigsaw do Hoffman is? He was damn near on his deathbed last time we saw him.
I'm not so sure he did. So far, this isn't following any of his patterns.
Meaning?
Well, how'd you get in here?
Cut the door down.
Why?
Because somebody heard an explosion. Called us.
I mean, why did you have to cut the door down?
It's welded shut. Bloody truck couldn't get in here.
Exactly.
I don't follow.
The aim of Jigsaw's game was to get out, but the bomb went off, and why was the door welded shut? The guy couldn't get out if he wanted to.
What? We just had a small explosion here in a car at the crime scene.
Okay, so the reason why I played those clips from Saw 3 and Saw 7 respectively is because after rewatching the films recently, I realized something that I never really took notice of before. In the opening clip from Saw 3, you hear Detective Carey mention how Troy's death doesn't fit the MO of John Kramer, being that even if Troy had escaped his trap, the door was welded shut, so he wouldn't have been able to escape before the bomb went off anyway. With him also being at the scene of the crime, this is a clear indicator that Detective Hoffman was the one who set Troy's game up and made the trap, in my opinion. The second clip that I played from Saw the Final Chapter was for clarification purposes, as it shows Hoffman has a knack for using bombs in his games, whether it is to use on a test subject like Troy, or to create a distraction like we saw in that junkyard scene from Saw the Final Chapter and heard in the second clip that I played. Another thing that I noticed about both of these games played is that we don't see any photos of these two characters in Troy and Evan like we see with John Kramer's previous test subjects, further signaling that not only was Mark Hoffman still carrying out John Kramer's games that he had set up before and after his death, but that he was also carrying out his own games of test subjects that he may have had a personal vendetta against throughout the franchise. We got a glimpse of this with Hoffman targeting Detective Matt Gibson in Final Chapter, as Gibson had reported Hoffman in the past for misconduct, putting him on the list of those to be eliminated by Hoffman in the future. We know for a fact how Hoffman became involved with John Kramer, as Hoffman had killed his sister's killer and ex-boyfriend, Seth Baxter, in a trap that was framed to look like a jigsaw trap. Much to the dismay of Kramer himself, he offered Hoffman a chance of redemption for his crime and to join him in doing the method the quote-unquote right way, much like he offered Amanda Young. However, after rewatching these films over and rewatching these scenes over with Troy and Evan's characters specifically, I believe Mark Hoffman continued to use John Kramer style traps to settle personal scores with more individuals than we know so far in the franchise, and that he continued to do so, thinking that after John dies and he gets Amanda Young out of the way, he would be clear of any suspicion of involvement, while also still framing John Kramer for the crimes that he didn't commit, as was the plan when he killed Seth Baxter to begin with. If true, this is something that could serve as a side story for Saw 11 and the Mark Hoffman character, as it would give us more insight on how far gone the character became after losing his sister and meeting John Kramer. Much like we got a glimpse of in Saw 3, we could also see some scenes in dialogue between Hoffman and Detective Allison Carey, if they have the character return for the next film, if they have Dina Meyer reprise her role as the character. This is something that I could definitely see happening given the timeline of events where Saw X and now Saw 11 is taking place. We could further get a look into the cat and mouse game that Hoffman was playing as an accomplice to Jigsaw on his colleagues from the outset of his involvement. One way or another, it is an exciting time to be a Saw fan, and I cannot wait to see what they plan on doing with the Mark Hoffman character, being that he is my favorite character outside of John Kramer in the entire Saw franchise. But okay everyone, that is it for this video. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on the Detective Mark Hoffman character in the Saw franchise. How big of a role will he have in Saw 11? And let me know if you think we will see more instances of the character altering the John Kramer method in his own games to settle personal vendettas. Once again, this is Shawneesmith 6 Times YouTube Horror Movie Channel. I'm your host and creator of the channel, Marcus. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching.